Welcome to the Smarter Money Life podcast hosted by Andy Mattingly. Frequent guest on local TV news, regular segment on Indy Now TV, and a leader here at Forum Credit Union. Forum's mission is to help members lead their financial dreams, and in today's podcast, we're going to cover a topic that will help you improve your financial life. Have you ever wondered where you are financially, especially as you're approaching the age of 30? Now, it's been a long time since I was approaching the age of 30, but some people may be thinking about what are some of those objectives they should be striving to achieve. Hi, this is Andy Mattingly, and I'm back today to talk to you about the financial objectives you should reach before you turn 30 and some of these goals and how you can do it. And joining me today, I won't give her exact age, but a 20-something, and she might be closer to 30 than she wants to admit, Meredith, one of our forum marketing specialists. And more importantly, she's living this journey, and I think she's going to have a lot of great insights for everyone and how she's navigated this. So, Meredith, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's going to be a pleasure, I know. So we're going to just dive right in. What are some of the most important financial objectives you're trying to achieve right now in your life? And I think this is important because there's a lot of people that are right where you are and they have objectives that they want to accomplish. So what are yours?
Yeah, I would say some of the financial objectives I have and been trying to achieve since I've started my career is to build an emergency fund, of course, improve my credit score, especially with student loans I've recently taken out, pay off that student debt, start to save for retirement, start to invest, and, of course, have a budget and stick to it.
Yes, those are all very good. So now you have some great objectives, but maybe you can share what some of your struggles have been, because I think a lot of people are in the same spot.
Yeah, I will say investing has been a struggle for me. I haven't really learned about it, and I guess to me it seems a little daunting, and I haven't taken the time to really learn about the best ways to invest, how to invest, but it is something that I want to do and want to learn.
Sure, that makes a lot of sense. I think investments are one of those things that people get very scared about because it seems so strange, but you can start very easily by understanding things with our 401k. And, always remember, if you get really confused, they have these great funds that are age-based, and they help you with it by just saying, I'm 30-ish and I'm going to retire when I'm 65-ish or 60-ish, and they put them in and make the funds for you. But I also think it is important to learn more about, investing and how you can do more things with your money. Because one of the things that happens is a lot of people, and I applaud you for this, a lot of people are scared of it, so then they just stick their money in a savings account and they don't make their money work for them. So you're well ahead of everyone on the curve, but I'm not surprised by that. So let's talk about some of the actions you've taken to obtain some of these goals and objectives. What are the things that you do?
Well, the first thing that was very important to me when I first started my career was to pay off my student debt as soon as possible. So I got into that right away and kind of figured out how much I could pay each month. So in 10 years, I could have it paid off. And that kind of goes along with building my credit. I'm paying off.
So first of all, when you did that payment scare you when you figured out that you could pay it off by 10 years? Or were you like, oh, I can do this?
It scared me a little bit, but as I've been doing it, it's been very doable, and a lot of people can't pay it off in 10 years. Right now, I'm very fortunate and am able to save a lot of money and able to work a lot of side gigs. And it's comforting that I'm able to change this amount. It's not a set amount that I have to pay, and I actually pay a little bit more than I should each month.
That's great. And she's being very, very shy about the fact is that Meredith has a lot of side gigs and a lot of give back. I mean, she's a very well-rounded person. And I think it's important for people to understand that you do a lot to make yourself and to improve things, but you also do a lot of things to give back. I mean, you're a lacrosse coach, which gives your time. I'm pretty sure you don't get paid much for that.
No.
But it is something you enjoy. But you also do a lot of things, and you're always doing things that's helped you be in this position. And, there's a lot of people that won't make the hard move to say, this is what I need to do to pay it off in 10 years. And I applaud you for even paying more because you could be doing other things with that and say, well, I can pay it off in 10 years. Because I think, what people don't understand is that you can make some choices and do it. And she's a very happy person with all the things that she's doing. So you don't have to worry about that.
Yes.
So,
yes.
If there's any advice you would give a recent college grad that can help them on their journey. So, someone who's 21 or 22 and is just starting to put these objectives together, what's some advice you would give them?
I would say for me, right out of college, I just started working while I was searching for my career, and that really helped me be able to have these, part-time gigs where I can save money. And with that, it made having a budget and having an emergency fund a lot less daunting, because then once you do establish your career, you kind of have these side gigs and kind of already have money saved up. So I'd really recommend, right off the bat, finding places where you can make money while you're looking for your job. And it also, within that helps you stay connected. It helps you meet other people around the area who can also later either give you financial advice or can connect you in the future if you're looking to change jobs or if you're looking to buy a new house. And I have just found that it's very important to have older people in your life who are more experienced and that you feel comfortable with. So I would highly recommend, getting comfortable with like maybe a family member or something. They can always offer you really good advice.
Yeah, that's great advice, because it's really about networking and knowing people. And, a funny little story about Meredith before she started working here, she was actually working an event here in one of her side gig jobs. And then she came in and interviewed, and everyone was like, we know her, and she was excellent. So, of course, we want her on our team. So I think the other moral of the story is, even if you're doing something that you don't like, do it with enthusiasm like you've shown, and it really pays off.
Yes.
Let's say that you had the ability to transport yourself back to, let's even say before you started college. And any time between now and then, are there any moves that you would have done differently if you could, or anything like that, or maybe knowledge you wish you would have had?
Yeah, I've kind of said this already. I wish I did start, in high school. I was so into my sports and stuff, and that kept me busy and did give me a good work ethic. But I do wish I did spend a little bit more time building up my savings, because when you do get into college, you aren't going to have much time to work jobs and be a part of clubs. So I would have wished that I did build my savings a little bit higher and kind of set myself a budget for while I was in college.
That makes sense. I think it is something to, tell the younger people that are maybe listening, or parents that have younger people. That isn't a really big thing, is about building up your savings and getting there, but also having a spending plan, because a lot of times it's like, oh, there's all these great things to do in college, and you get to Christmas and you're like hoping everyone gives you money, and not gifts, because you need money for the second semester.
Yes.
So yes, I get that. Some of the things that we have talked about that are your goals, I think are very good. So when you think about an emergency fund, what's your purpose of saving in the emergency fund? Like, what kind of emergencies have you had to dip in for, or you would dip in for if these come up? What would be those kinds of emergencies?
Yeah, so actually this week I did just have to pay for my car to get repaired.
Yes, the classic.
So that is one thing I have to think of, and what I knew I had to think of when I purchased a used car.
So, you're right. When you purchase a used car, there's a lot of things to think about. And, just so you're putting money in an emergency fund. And so I think a lot of times you can tell people to say, hey, well, if I'm purchasing a used car, I get to save a little bit on the payment, but then I also need to putting some of that money into a fund, like an extra payment for the car, because it's just kind of insurance. Like, we have to have insurance for if we're in an accident, but we also need some of our own insurance when we buy a used car. I'm a big proponent of buying used cars. And that's always my thought process is I'm going to put a little bit in every month into a car fund, because I know I'm going to have expenses with it, but I'm fine with that because I'm not paying as much for it.
Yes. And I will say this is where making connections come in, because I had an older friend of mine tell me to keep track of the payments I do make on this car. And she mentioned that at some point if this does equal a car payment that you would make on a newer car, maybe at that point it would be worth your while. So that has also kind of helped me keep it in my mind how much I do spend on this car.
And I'll give you another rule of thumb that I always go by. If I have to spend money on my car 3 months in a row, it's time to change it.
Yes, that is.
That's also my rule of thumb.
Yeah.
Because then I think it's time to change it. Yes. Another thing that you talked about was building your credit score. And do you have an ability to see your credit score now in with some relationship that you have, like an app or something? Are you able to see your credit score on a regular basis?
Andy, I am able to see it on the Forum Credit Union mobile app, and I actually found out about that by listening to this podcast.
Yeah, it is a little hidden.
Yeah.
The point I wanted to make with that is that it is great that you can see your credit score, and it's going to move up and down. You've probably noticed it moves up and down, but generally it'll keep going up as you do things. And I think that's good that you're focused on improving your credit score in that way. And I just wanted to bring it up to remind people there's lots of places you can find your credit score, and it's good to see that. So, and I'm glad that you listened to the podcast and found that out. We've talked a little bit about, contributing to your 401k and that. So what is your goal with what you're doing with your 401k as far as contributions?
Yeah, so I've always been told if your company matches, you always match.
Yes. And, different companies' matches are different. But, there's a kind of a rule of thumb that says you want to try to get to 10% of your income as the minimum. So if you're at a place where you can put in 6 and the company's matching 4, you're at 10. And then they say, and if you can ever get to 10 on your own and the company's matching 4, you're like really golden. So if you can get there to that 10% of your own by the time you're, in your mid-30s, you're really well off because of just how much your investments are going to grow over time. So that's really good that you're there. And yes, everybody that's told you that, the saying is if you're not at the company match, you're just leaving money on the table because it's money to get. And most companies, when they match, you're vested pretty quickly. So even if you leave after 2 or 3 years, it's still your money. I want to talk a little bit about, the steps that you take to achieve these goals, but we're first going to do a little checklist, and you're going to say, yes, I do it, or no, I don't do this, because I have a list of things that I try to tell people to do to help them achieve these goals. So the first one is, do you use a budget or use a budgeting app?
I do not.
Okay.
I do try to put a certain amount of money keep it in my spending from my paycheck. And I try to not spend it all in the 2 weeks until I get paid again. Okay,
so this is perfect. You haven't listened to today's podcast that dropped where I talk about that there is different ways to budget, and you're doing the one that we call having a spending plan, which you are only spending. So you should pat yourself on the back. You're actually budgeting. When someone says that you're not budgeting, you are budgeting. Okay, I think this one you're going to say yes. Become knowledgeable about personal financial issues.
Yes.
And what are some of the things that you try to do besides listening to this wonderful podcast?
Yeah, I've talked to a lot of my coworkers and a lot of my parents' friends. My mom has always stressed about having a good credit score. And when I started paying my loans, I kind of talked to her about it. I just think it's really important to continue getting information from people who have real life experiences.
That's a really good point. I mean, I think people forget about the fact that there's a lot of people out there that have real life experiences, good and bad, because they can tell you what not to do too, which is sometimes a great way to learn. So I'm pretty sure you're going to agree with this one. Reduce debt as quickly as possible.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I figured that would be one that you would say.
Yes.
Now, here's sometimes what I tell to people when they say, hey, I want to get my own place, but I can't afford anything. I say, have you considered having a roommate to lower the expense?
Yes.
What do you say to that? Is that a good idea?
Yes.
Okay. I say be a smart grocery shopper. Do you consider yourself to be a smart grocery shopper?
Yes, and I try not to go when I'm hungry.
The other thing that I talk to people to say if they want to make their goals is, to always find the discount, the coupon, or the sale on everything that you buy. So do you believe in that?
Yes.
Okay, good. I'm doing pretty good. Okay, find cheap entertainment, as in free things or low-cost things, and not always going to the Taylor Swift concerts that are, within driving distance of where you're at.
Yes.
Okay. Volunteer or give back to fill your time.
Definitely.
And one of the reasons why I say that is that one of the reasons why some people spend more money than they want to is it's just a case of wanting to fill their time. And I think the fact that you volunteer a lot is really important because it keeps you happy and you have a little less spending urges. And this is the last one, and I know you fully embrace this one. Start a side gig or other things to earn more money. And,
yes.
And I think the thing that I want to reiterate to people that you said before, in case they didn't hear it, is that you did this right when you first got out of school. Even before you started your job, you had several different things going on, and you've kept some of them because they've been a great place to connect with people, which I hadn't really thought about, and also build your, kind of your network in how to achieve your goals. And I know we're talking about financial goals here, but it's also helped you achieve your career goals as well, I think you would say, yes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Good. Well, in this episode, we've talked about where you want to be when you're 30, and Meredith has done a great job in explaining how she has gotten there and what she wants to do. And, as we're thinking about our push to be 30 or to be 40 or to be 50, really the things that you're going to do later in life, you've set a great foundation for those things because it's really what you do in your 20s that help you. You're going to have your student loans paid off early into your 30s, which then makes it easier to afford a house. You bought a used car, and I want to reiterate some of these things. You bought a used car, and you have a plan to make sure that it works instead of buying a brand new car, so you're making smart. You talked about having a roommate so you can lower. All of those things, I think, has really helped you work on those other goals, building your credit score, building an emergency fund, and all of those types of things. So I think the thing that we can share with all of our listeners is, and you can just give me an affirmation, it is doable to make the goals that you've set out by the time you're 30.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think it's a little bit more daunting than it actually is. Once I sat down with these goals and looked at them, I realized that I was actually achieving a lot more of these goals than I actually thought I was.
Yeah. And that's important. I don't think a lot of people spend enough time patting themselves on the back and saying, actually, I'm doing better than I thought. And it's, one of the things that we hope that you get out of our podcast is to look at what you're doing and say, hey, maybe I'm doing okay. Because if you're in your 20s, you're going to be 30 soon. Some of you a lot quicker than you think. But that's really the time when you want to have built this strong financial foundation. And looking at these goals, they're going to give you that strong financial foundation. This has been another episode of the Smarter Money Life podcast powered by Forum Credit Union. Please leave your thoughts in the comments and be sure to look for our next episode wherever you get your podcast. Remember, now is a great time to make a difference in your financial life. Until next time.